Welcome back, boys and girls, to Bullshit Filter, episode 90.
Yes.
It's been a few weeks. Oh, you've changed coffee mugs. I like that.
I've got
You're
one
using the coffee mug for each show.
Well, if we're going to do video, put on a nice shirt, get the appropriate mug, but not pants, because that's in my contract, right, Cheryl? And so I can bring the correct mug to each show. I think I just spilled some whiskey. Damn it, anyway, this is water.
I've got this one, but it's got just dust in it, really.
Dust in the wind. Sorry, go ahead.
This is our second attempt at recording this. We did it a couple of days ago using Zencaster, a podcast recording platform.
Right.
Yeah. And it lost Ray's side of the recording. Now, normally that wouldn't be any big deal, but I think you did read from my notes for an extensive period, so we need to redo it. I want to start off. There's just a couple of stories that have hit my radar over the last couple of weeks that I thought it was worth spending some time talking about.
Yeah.
The first one is getting back to the whole China Uyghur situation. People who've heard that episode or those episodes will recall that I said that the main source that the Western media and Western politicians are using to accuse China of stuff is Dr Adrian Zenz, this German academic.
Right.
The Grey Zone did a great sort of drill down on his reporting. Last time we talked about the fact that he's an extreme Christian right-wing ideologue who has written a lot of wacky shit about the end of times and said that he believes that God has sent him on a mission to destroy communism, which is his motivation for doing all of this kind of stuff, which I think in and of itself makes you raise question marks about his credibility as a source.
Yes.
But the Grey Zone have done a deep dive on his report, and I just want to touch on some of the points that they have raised because it's interesting stuff.
Right. Yeah. I just wanted to ask, because we've kind of talked about this before, where do you draw the line? It's like, okay, here's Cameron Riley, podcaster extraordinaire, podfather of Australia. I get all that. The long-form history, amazing shit. Yeah. But let's say I was to read in there...
Big dick, handsome.
Right. Yeah. He has a handsome big dick.
Hardest working man in show business.
Exactly, to make up for... Anyway, but what if I was to read that you... bestiality or just something. Does that take away? I mean, like this guy, he puts out this stuff about China and the Uyghurs, and he's supposedly trying to save them, and China's bad or whatever. But then we find out, kind of, end of days, Jews need to convert or they're going to die in a fiery furnace. I mean, that's kind of out there stuff. So but I wonder about the totality of the person. Can I be sane and rational 9 to 5, writing my papers about how bad China is, and then say all this crazy Christian shit at night or on the weekends, and then still be taken seriously by everybody?
Yeah, it's a good point to bring up. Just hold on a second. Yeah. Cheryl, do I need to answer this? Are we under oath? Okay. Apparently I do need to take this question.
Yeah.
Look, yes, there is the risk of using ad hominem attacks on a source to attack their credibility. As a technique of avoiding the content or the substance of their allegations or claims or reports.
Right.
We don't want to fall into that trap.
Yes.
But I think there are exceptions to something being declared an outright ad hominem. One of those is if the evidence is that the person you're talking about is batshit crazy.
Right.
Because anyone who... If I said, well, here's my report on nuclear physics...
Right.
By the way, I'm not saying this as Cameron. I'm saying this as the reincarnation of Genghis Khan.
Sure.
And I will be conquering the world with my hordes at 5 o'clock tomorrow.
Right.
But until then, I want you to listen to my physics report.
Right.
I think it is reasonable in that instance to say, this guy's batshit crazy, we should take everything that he says with a grain of salt.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you don't listen, but take it with a grain of salt until it's verified by a less insane source.
Right. A second
Equally
source.
as concerning,
Right.
Equally as concerning is when my insanity overlaps with the subject that I'm talking about.
Ah, okay, yes.
So in Adrian Zenz's case, he has openly and publicly said that he's a believer in the end times coming, and he's an extreme Christian, as you said, believes that when the end times come, all the Jews will have to convert or be sent to a fiery furnace.
Right.
And he's also said that he believes that God has sent him on a mission to destroy the Chinese communists.
Good luck.
And that's why he's doing his work.
Right.
So that's a big red flag, I think. I don't think it's an ad hominem attack to say we need to be careful taking anything this guy says about China.
Yeah.
Or communists in China in particular, at taking it at face value, because he definitely has a bias and an agenda, which is you would expect to be evident in his work, because he has expressed a religious-based hatred of communism. Because, as we know, communism says they're going to get rid of religion. We've talked about this in our Cold War show at length. Right. One of the fundamental tenets of Marxism is that religion is one of the tools of the oppression of the masses, and so a good socialist/communist society shouldn't have religion in it.
Right.
And so religious people hate communism for that reason in particular, which is why the American corporations were able to get American preachers on board in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s to demonize communism, because they could position, well, if it becomes popular here, you guys are all out of a gig. Exactly. So they were like, oh fuck, better stop that, nip that in the bud.
Yeah. Let me be just extremely cynical for a second, because we just tonight we recorded a Cold War show, but the last couple of Cold War shows about the CIA, it's like, if there's someone sane, doing, or potentially can help us against communism, let's put them on the payroll. And there's a part of me that was thinking about that, and I'm so cynical at this point. I can almost picture this Dr. Zenz going, you know what? America and China, they're going to be butting heads, and I don't know how long he's been at this. I guess it's been for a while, but there's a part of me that can almost picture him going, you know what? I'm going to give the Americans, the American government, and the American press exactly what they want, what they need to bash China over the head. And they're going to pay me. I'm going to be on shows. I'm going to write books. So they're going to have me on in interviews. I can maybe star guest on a podcast or whatever. But I mean, there's a part of me that's almost willing to believe that he's doing all this shit just to get paid. Because you and I could turn right now. We could say horrible things about the Chinese government for all of the 20th century. We could just spin things, we could say things, and we could be the guy, we could be the China haters who supposedly back everything up with facts and all that stuff. And at some point, Fox News or someone's going to have us on, because they need people like that. And so there's a part of me that's just going, at the end of the day, this guy probably believes what he believes, but it doesn't hurt that he's getting all this notoriety, and he's probably getting paid by somebody or several someones. I know that sounds cynical, but it's still there.
Yeah, well, we know that the Uyghur witnesses that are being pulled out in the media seem to be on the CIA payroll or through some fronts or, CIA-funded operations. As for Zenz, I don't know. Maybe he's not interested in the money. He's just doing it for religious motivations.
Sure.
I don't know.
Could be.
But... the US government's claims that China's committing genocide, it comes out of this single source, June 2020 paper that Adrian Zenz wrote.
Right.
Now, the way they've spun this, it's like, well, yeah, they're saying it's a kind of genocide. I think we talked about this last time, but they're not literally killing people.
Right.
They're just preventing births, supposedly, of Uyghur people.
It's a form.
Which is a form of genocide.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It's a form of genocide. So, I guess we're going to drill down into the stats and the numbers from his report and have a look at actually what's going on there. And one of the things that we'll find is that the data in the report that he talks about is contradicted, and he's left data out of his report that would contradict his conclusions about some form of deliberate genocide of the people. He used statistics in his report that shows that between 2005 and 2000... No, let me go back a second. His statistics show that population growth rates amongst the Uyghur people in Xinjiang, the main region where they live in China, fell by 84% between 2015 and 2018.
Wow. Okay.
So that's a huge drop.
Yes.
Okay. You would have to go, okay, well, what's going on there? 84% in population growth rates is substantial.
Right. Yeah.
But he also provided statistics that showed that between 2005 and 2015, the Uyghur population growth in Xinjiang was 2.6 times higher than that of the Han Chinese population in the same region, in Xinjiang.
Okay. So the growth rates are down, but the population is up. No. Help me with this. No.
Try and follow. Watch the banana. Try and follow me here.
All right. That helps.
The Uyghur population growth rates in Xinjiang between 2005 and 2015 were 2.5 times higher than the population growth rates during that same period of the Han Chinese population in that area.
Right.
From 2015 to 2018, their population growth rates fell by 84%.
Gotcha.
So what happened in 2015 that impacted on the population growth rates of the Uyghur people? Because before that period, they were actually growing faster than the Han Chinese population.
Right.
Zenz's figures show that there was an increase in the Uyghur population from 10.1 million to 11.8 million from 2010 to 2018.
Okay.
Chinese government figures have an even larger increase. They say 10.1 million to 12.7 million. So that means, either way, that the Uyghur population in Xinjiang during that period, 2010 to 2018, which includes the period where he says there was a decrease in the population growth rates, it grew by about 25% during that 8-year period, which sounds pretty substantial overall. Zenz shows that the Han Chinese population rose from 8.5 to 9.8 million during that period. Chinese government figures says it was a little bit smaller. It was 8.8 million to 9 million. It's a lot smaller, actually. It's 200,000 versus he has 1.2 million. They say 200,000. But either way, it was less than the increase of the Uyghur population, massively less than the increase of the Uyghur population in that period. Now, one of the potential explanations for this might have something to do with the one-child policy that China's famously had since 1979. Now, the background to it is that when Deng Xiaoping took over the party in 1979 and he started to think, we've talked about this before in our China series, but he decided, you know what, it's not working the way we're doing it. We're all starving. We need to change shit up. We need to take a little bit of capitalism, integrate it into our socialism,
mix it in,
get the living standards up, and then we can get rid of it, and we'll have our functioning socialist economy. But we weren't ready. We weren't ready to dive into socialism. We tried to go too fast, too hard, bit like you on your wedding night, and it just ends in tears. That never works. We have to.
He's not wrong.
We have to go back a few steps to go forwards.
Yes.
And one of the other things we need to slow. One of the other. Sorry, I'm speaking in tongues. I've been possessed by the ghost of Deng Xiaoping, who's trying to speak Mandarin to you. And it's,
because that's what it sounded like to me.
Ni hao ma. So
they got to mix.
One of the other. Hey, don't fucking interrupt. One of the other things we need to do...
You're right, Cheryl. Diva.
Cheryl, tell him to shut the fuck up. Is slow the population growth down.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We can't even feed us all as it is. If we add another billion people over the next 10 years, we're fucked.
Right.
Need to slow the population down. One child policy.
Yes. For
the foreseeable future. You get one kid only.
Right. For the Han.
And for the Han.
For the Han.
For Han Solo, Princess Leia, they can only have mopey Darth Vader.
Yeah. Yes. With mossy colored brown hair, indistinguished. Yeah. So if and I'm going off memory here, but the Han can have one child since 1979. The Uyghurs, I think, it was like if you lived in the city, you could have two, and if you lived in the country, you'd have three. But I think what they found out, and they really didn't do anything about, was that the Uyghurs in the country were having a lot more than 3 kids, and so their population was able to increase faster than the Han. But then supposedly, I guess the Chinese government at some point says, okay, we don't need to do the one child thing anymore. We brought our standard of living money up. We've got the population kind of under control. So I think they eased it a bit on the Han Chinese.
Yeah, kind of. So in 2015, the Chinese government decided to relax the one-child policy for urban Han families, couples. They were allowed to have 2 children, and rural families were allowed to have 3. So this is a new thing.
Yeah.
But in Xinjiang, where the birth rates had been exceeding the previous limits, where they're having 9 and 10 kids in some families in the rural areas, they decided to bring the Uyghur population in line with the Han population in terms of the policies.
Right.
So in July of 2017, Xinjiang's regional government ended the exemption for the old child limits for the Uyghur population.
Right.
They were supposed to get in line and reduce the amount of kids they were having.
Right.
Now, the Chinese government has said that resulted in a 5% decrease in the birth rate in Xinjiang between 2017 and 2018. And it was the result of just equal enforcement of family planning policies.
Because they're part of China,
which you'd
too.
expect.
They are part of China. They should be following the same rules as everyone else. Even though they're trying to break away, it's still a countrywide policy, I guess.
Now, on top of that, one of the things that's happened in recent years is the population's getting older, which is happening around the world, which adds to a population growth decrease.
Yeah.
And also, contraceptives have become much more widely available around the country.
Thank God.
And probably also, to an extent, the de-religiousization of the country and
guilt and shame in your body and all that good stuff. Yeah.
And people, but having more sex for fun, less sex for kids, less idea of we have to build huge families. The government over there distributes 1 billion free condoms to its people every year as part of its attempts to minimise the population growth.
Every country should. And
as an example of this, the city of Guangzhou, which is a long way from Xinjiang, the rate of newborn babies is now at its lowest point in a decade.
Wow.
So population growth, there's a lot of reasons for it. This isn't to say that the Chinese aren't deliberately trying to reduce the population in Xinjiang. That may be true, but I guess what we're saying is that there's a lot of factors here that come into play when you look at the population growth decline, and they're not part of Zenz's report. He's omitted them.
Exactly.
And they're not part of the media story that's being presented to us in the West. Yeah. And then you have to ask, well, why not?
Right.
Why did Zenz not include this information in his report? Is it an omission, a deliberate omission, or just is he doing a shitty job?
Yeah.
And then why isn't the Western media pointing out these facts apart from the grey zone? Why isn't the Western media pointing out all this and doing their own analysis, getting their own researchers who can do this analysis and break it down and provide some context and some depth,
some balance?
And it gets back, it gets back to this quote that I used in our Cold War show today too. Donald P. Gregg. I just read his memoirs, Pot Shards, Fragments of a Life Lived in the CIA, the White House, and the Two Koreas.
Right.
He was a CIA employee for 30 years, station chief, National Security Advisor to Vice President George H.W. Bush, US Ambassador to South Korea. And in his 2014 memoirs, towards the end, he has this great quote, which I think every American child should have to recite hand on heart every morning instead of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sorry. It feels like my heart because it's throbbing, but I'm probably wrong. I don't do anatomy, do I, Cheryl? Very funny, Cheryl. You. Go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
Visual joke. And for those of you who don't know, we put our shows up on YouTube now, so you should, if you want to see the visual
full
jokes.
Experience.
Yeah. Here's the quote. As I think back over the varying patterns of US foreign policy that I have observed or been a part of, it seems clear that what invariably gets us into trouble is our tendency to demonize foreign leaders or foreign groups we neither like nor understand.
Yeah.
In such cases, we fill our gaps of ignorance with prejudice, and the result is hostility fueled by demagoguery and damage done to all concerned.
Nailed it. That's the American mentality, and I'm sure other countries do it too, but we definitely demonize people who are not completely on board, and kind of like Trump, loyal. If you're not 100% loyal, we will find a way to pick you apart, think less of you, and then when you're dehumanized, we can do whatever we will justify doing whatever we want to you. And we do.
Yeah. And as I said on the Cold War show we just did, look, I think that this kind of mentality is standard for all people who run empires, because you kind of need to have this mindset if you run an empire.
Yes.
To run an empire, you have to think we're superior, they're
Us,
inferior.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, in order to sell that, it's a lot easier if you can portray them as being barbarians or evil or corrupt or villainous or whatever. You have to demonize them in some way to sell it to the people. Because if you went out to the people and said, look, we want to invade this country, but quite honestly, they're a nice bunch of people and they're doing their best and they're working hard. And look, the reason they don't like us is because we've been fucking with their country for 50 years and we've invaded it and overthrown governments and paid militias and we're responsible for the deaths of millions of their people and economic destabilization of their country because of the secret covert operations that we've been involved in for 50 years. Right. So that's probably why they don't like us. But hey, listen. We want to keep doing that shit, so would that be okay?
Right.
You can't sell it to the people like that. Barry and Stan have to come in and go, whoa.
First of all, Barry, you got some Coke? Okay, now go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Ixnay on the ooth tray. Like, it's... That's not how we sell stuff.
No. Words, wording. Come on. Pitch it. Sorry.
Spin it, baby, spin it.
Right round, baby, right round. Anyway,
Speaking of spinning it, so one of the organisations where Adrian Zenz works...
Oh, good.
He's a German, but he works for the Washington, D.C.-based right-wing lobby group, the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation.
That's so sweet.
Barry and Stan came up with that name.
Right.
I personally work for the Victims of Capitalism Memorial Foundation.
Yes. I'm a charter member.
World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, the Korean War. There's a bunch of wars here that...
Kids in Flint, Michigan, drinking shitty water, starvation, Texans dying. But capitalism is the best thing ever. Yeah.
Now, this group was born out of something called the National Captive Nations Committee, which was founded by Ukrainian nationalist Lev Dobryansky.
Nice name.
And its co-chairman was Yaroslav Stetsko.
Okay.
who
Right.
was a leader of a little something called the OUNB militia
That sounds familiar.
that we've talked about on our Cold War show in recent times.
Not a good guy.
They were literally a fascist organization that literally worked with the Nazis
Right.
during World War II, and then went on to become a worldwide terrorist organization afterwards.
See, I don't like that. You make it sound like just because someone's pro-Nazi, they start an organization that goes on to terrorize other people. What about turning the other cheek or giving them a second chance? Or you assume that they're what they're attempting to do is bad. Maybe they were bad during the 1940s and 50s. Who wasn't? Let's face it, we all get a little crazy in our youth. But they're better people now. Maybe this organization is on the right path. I'm making this shut up as I go along, but for a second there I thought I had you going. But no, they're all fucking evil scum. And I retract everything I just said. Sorry.
Lev Dobryansky, on the other hand, was born in New York City in 1918, son of Ukrainian immigrants.
Right.
Zenz is also employed by the Jamestown Foundation, which is a neocon think tank in Washington.
Sounds good. American.
That was created by Reagan's CIA director, William Casey.
Don't trust it.
And it was set up to act as a way of funneling money to Soviet dissidents.
My money.
Here's a quote from the former US Deputy Chief of Mission in Beijing and Assistant Secretary of Defense Chaz Freeman.
Cool.
He told the Grey Zone, "In the current atmosphere, we should be especially skeptical about any and all assertions by people who have become part of the current anti-China campaign in the West. Before we condemn, we should be sure of our facts."
That's something new for the CIA, if they did it. Anyway, sorry. No, but you bring up a very important part, and I know this has been your obsession for obsession. This has been something you've been focused on for 6 months. So let's just rehash real quick. The reason we're bringing this up is Dr. Zenz has nothing good to say about the Communist Party, as far as I can tell. In fact, they're preventing future births by their policies. I mean, they're killing people that even haven't been born yet. So communism, government, bad. I get that. But like you just said a second ago, all the news, or a lot of the news agencies in the West, are pretty much bringing him on the show or repeating what he says, or it's basically the same message. There's no deep dive analysis. There's no counterbalance. There's no one either trying to pretend to bring up the other side. So again, this is what we are being fed. This is what we're being shoveled, 24/7 with the news being on all the time. And so you literally have to go and work to find out. Not that this is wrong, because it could be right. The Chinese government could be after these people. We have no idea. But the point is, there's no other side of the story. We don't know what the other side of the story is. And we probably think that we really can't trust this guy completely because he's kind of out there with some of his other views. So the whole point is you have to work hard and dig just to find the other side of a story, because there's always another side. There's always the other half of the story, but you're not hearing that from the major news media outlets. Why? I don't know, but it's obviously serving someone's purpose, or someone's, a group of people's purpose. So
yeah. Moving right along.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something else involving the CIA.
Shock. Gasp.
Yeah. Now, there's been a recent immigration court case in the US involving the Turkish Islamic leader Fetullah Gulen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people, if you've heard, you might have heard his name. Back in 2016, there was an attempted coup in Turkey, and President Erdogan in Turkey blamed it on Fetullah Gulen and his organization, the Gulen movement, as they're known. Kind of a worldwide Islamic group of madrasas or religious schools that was founded by this guy in the 70s. Now, Gulen, who lives in the United States, denied it, but some stuff has come out in this recent US court case, which is really interesting. Now, I went looking for reporting on this, almost impossible to find. The story that I've got is from the dailycos.com.
Right.
And they're quoting a Turkish news agency that has this information.
Right.
So I'm saying that up front as a disclaimer.
Sure.
I tried to verify it. I couldn't verify it. I couldn't find... I found the Turkish sources, but I couldn't find any American-based reporting. Now, why? Well, as you'll see, it's probably been hushed up, state secrets, etc., etc. How the Turkish news agency got their hands on it, I don't know, but they may have... The Turkish government probably has a representative in these hearings that I imagine is leaking it to the Turkish press.
Right.
Anyway, so Gulen has been applying for a green card again in the United States. And one of the things that's come out of this apparently is claims made by the US State Department's own attorneys
Right.
that Gulen is being funded by the CIA and his organisation is being funded by the CIA.
Wow.
Which some people are suggesting is more evidence of a long-standing program that the CIA has been involved in, going back decades, of funding and supporting and arming Islamic groups across Asia, Central Asia,
Right.
Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, if you go back to the Mujahideens, Pakistan, in order to try and control the natural resources in these regions by getting allies in these regions.
Right.
The same way the CIA supported, funded, armed the Mujahideen
Right.
in the late 70s in Afghanistan to try and overthrow the Soviet-backed government of Afghanistan at the time, which led directly to Al-Qaeda. They're doing the same thing around the world, is the allegation, is the conspiracy theory here.
Right.
Now, as you know, my general viewpoint with conspiracy theories is we should entertain them all, but we shouldn't believe them
Right.
unless they are supported by substantial amounts of evidence.
Right.
And that's quite often difficult to get in situations like this because the evidence is being hidden from us if these things are true. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about them.
Yeah.
You know, there's a difference between entertaining and considering these things. And, you know, on one extreme you go, no, don't listen to any of those stories. They're all completely crazy bullshit.
Right.
That's unreasonable because we've seen many times over the years that we find out decades later that the conspiracy theories were actually true.
Yeah.
You know, we could sit here and rattle off a whole list of them. We don't have time for that. People have probably heard us talk about them a million times anyway.
Yeah.
The other extreme is to just believe every conspiracy theory that comes along because it fits with the narrative that you want, that pharmaceutical companies are trying to put chips in the backs of our heads with Bill Gates, and coronavirus was manufactured by Big Pharma, and everyone's out to get us, and the lizard people,
Right.
and all that, right? So there are extremes. Where I sit is in the middle. I say, look, we've been lied to enough to know that we're probably being lied to right now. About what we don't know, by whom we don't know, but we're probably getting lied to. Our job is to try and work out who's lying and what the lies are, and to stay open and look for evidence. And this is important because it seems to be some evidence of this theory.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Talk. You talk.
I was just going to ask a question because you said something just a minute ago that, and you kind of said it in a casual way because you probably have heard of it before, but it was kind of new to me. So we know that people in America, the government in America, is not exactly crazy about Islam. We'll just leave that one there. But we are supposedly, maybe, through the CIA, Islamizing, or however I'm supposed to say that, areas of the former Soviet Union in Central Asia, because it would cause the communist government in China, it would cause them trouble. Maybe other areas, like with the Uyghurs, maybe they'll break away, and then we can get our foot in the door to benefit from their natural resources, their labor, cheap labor, all that kind of stuff. And if I could just be unbiased for a second, pretty fucking amazing for someone to go, like decades ago, you know what? If we start kind of fucking with these regions and getting them to push their own religion, which some of the governments over there doesn't like, maybe they'll get mad, maybe there'll be a civil war, maybe they'll break away, and if they do break away, maybe we can slide in and help them with some arms, some money, build up their trust, and then the American corporations coming in, and suddenly we're making a whole bunch of money with this region. And just as important, the Russian or Chinese government is not making the money. It's a zero-sum game in a lot of ways. So the idea of someone sitting back and going, this is the 1960s or 70s, let's fuck with them and see if we can break off a couple of pieces of the Chinese empire or the Russian country or whatever. That takes balls of steel to think of that or to actually implement it. Now, we probably won't know for decades if this is true or not. But again, that kind of thinking, which I would almost define as crazy, I think is in the CIA's wheelhouse, and for them, that's just another day at the office. But if this is what's going on, pretty fucking crazy, and of course it could lead to war. So it's like you got to be careful because you might upset too many people, and then suddenly you can't control the situation anymore. But
I think you might be giving them a little bit too much credit.
I don't
think when they started this, they thought this is a 60-year game plan.
Right.
I thought they thought it's a year. Like within a year we'll have overthrown the country and instead of seeing this as a brilliant, long-reaching, generational plan.
Right.
The way to look at it, based on what we know about the CIA, from what we're talking about in the Cold War show, is 60 years of failed plans.
Right.
To overthrow the government of these countries.
Right.
They thought they'd get it done in a year, and when they fail, they just do it again,
keep going.
And do it again, and do it again,
but not learn.
And do it again, and do it again.
But not learn.
Well, you're not allowed to learn because
then I'm in. I'm qualified.
Yeah. It's just it's a legacy of failure, is what it is.
Pretty much.
They just keep going. Anyway, let's get into the story.
Yes.
So Gulen has been living in the United States since 1998, and he's applied for a green card on 3 occasions that I'm aware of, 2002, 2008, and then again 2020. So the first question is, how the fuck do you live and work in the United States for 23 years without a green card?
Is he white? I think he's a little... No! So I can't answer your question. That's the only thing I had going for me. So he's been here for 23 years.
He's Turkish. He's whitish.
Whitish, but not white enough. You know what I'm saying? Anyway.
Slavy white.
Slavy white. Slavy white. He's been here for 23 years and we haven't kicked him out. There's more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah, like my son Hunter wants to go and live and work in Hollywood.
Nope.
He needs a green card.
Yep.
He can't get one easily. He can't just rock up there and go, well, I'm here
It's
now, I'm staying.
I'm an Aussie.
Yeah.
Give me my fucking green card.
And he's a white boy
Exactly.
and an Aussie.
Right, yes.
You guys love Aussies, except me. But every other Aussie, you love them.
Love them.
Yeah. So something is going on here. How he's... And it's not like... I said this to Chrissy. How do you live and work in the United States without a green card for 23 years? And she said, well, you're probably just, legal immigrant. You just hide. And he's not hiding.
No.
They all know where he is. He's like he's famous.
Yeah. He's applying for a green card now.
Turkey's been trying to get him deported back to Turkey so he can stand trial, and the US government's like, no, we're not into that. He's applied for a green card 3 occasions. He's very famous. So he's not hiding. They know who he is and where he is and that he's there. Yeah. And he's been turned down for a green card on 2 separate occasions, and yet he's still there.
Exactly.
How the fuck does that happen?
I don't know. Normally when I'm kicked out of a place, I'm kicked out. Yeah. How does this happen?
Well, we know from our Cold War series that the CIA has a long history of taking literal German Nazi commanders of concentration camps.
Right. Well, you say it like that.
Moving them to the US and protecting them. Nazis, German Nazis, Ukrainian Nazis, Croatian Nazis, Cuban terrorists, and just hiding them there and saying, well, you just leave them alone, don't touch them, blah, 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 blah. So I'm guessing that, and we'll see, this guy also has a long history with the CIA anyway, so we're guessing that. He's 67 years old, by the way. So the Gulen movement that he runs, claims to have 7 million followers around the world. Apart from the schools that they run, extensive business interests valued at something like $25 billion, books, newspapers, construction, healthcare, education.
Right.
And when this coup happened in 2016 in Turkey, or attempted coup, he was accused by the Turkish government of running a terrorist organisation that was trying to overthrow the government. They arrested tens of thousands of people in Turkey that they claimed had an involvement with the Gulen movement.
Right.
And they were judges and cops and academics and all sorts of people. And in the West, it was portrayed as just a big purge by Erdogan of his enemies, and he's blaming it on the Gulen movement, etc., which may be true.
Yeah.
But on the surface, the Gulen movement seems to be the kind of Islamic educational organisation that you would want to support.
Right.
Leaving aside the fact that all religion is stupid, and all religious people are stupid.
Right.
You were, by definition, sorry, I mean, I hate to break it to you, but if you're watching this and you're religious, you're stupid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Cheryl's nodding, so she agrees. So
I don't mean to offend you, but
yeah.
Religion is stupid, therefore you are stupid. If you want to complain, write an email to Cheryl, cheryl@cherylsemail.co.uk.
Dot up her ass. Go ahead. No, you're not wrong. Anyway. Yeah.
The Gulen movement supports science and mathematics, talks about a world where Islam can get along with other religions and atheists and agnostics. Gulen is quoted as saying, studying physics, mathematics and chemistry is worshipping God, which sounds like golden age Islam. We go back to 11th century, 12th century, when all of their great work on taking the Greek and Latin classics and building on them happened, where they were on the forefront of science and philosophy and mathematics and biology and all that kind of stuff. Like we're doing Da Vinci in our Renaissance show, and a lot of the stuff Da Vinci learned about optics he got from Islamic writings from Baghdad and places like that that had made their way into Europe as a result of the Crusades and the printing press and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Anywho, another quote from Gulen is, the antidote to religious extremism is a religious education program that teaches the tradition in a holistic and contextualized way. To be able to resist the deceits of radical ideologues, young Muslims must understand the spirit of their scripture and the overarching principles of their prophet's life.
Yeah. Can I be cynical for a second? If I have an organization like this, and whether it started out this way or not, but now I'm pretty much, the CIA is all the way up my ass to the kidneys, and I'm getting a bunch of money from them, and they're the only thing keeping me in this country out of Turkey, where I will be put up against a wall and shot. Doesn't your organization have to appear moderate, acceptable to the Westerns, stuff that they want to hear? So I would imagine that even if it wasn't a front for the CIA, not that we know definitively, but I would think that would be their message anyway. If it was hardcore, extreme Islamic messages, then he probably wouldn't be in this country. But at the very least, I've got to think, isn't his organization? Wouldn't you expect his organization to be that kind of okay with Western moderate viewpoints, just to be able to get along with the people in the West? I would be surprised if it was anything other than that.
Well, you got a great point, and imagine a meeting taking place in Jerusalem or Washington 50 years ago,
right?
And Barry and Stan running the meeting. They're like, "All right, thank you for coming. Well, as you know, our objective today, pass the Coke bowl around, everyone. There's plenty of it. Don't worry. We've got our contacts in the Golden Triangle that the CIA established in Burma, now called Myanmar.
Kind of accidentally, but that was us.
Back in the 50s.
That was us.
Well, we've still got the supply chain. Don't worry about it. So the Coke's free. It's on the house. So the goal is to figure out a way to infiltrate Islam around the world.
Right.
Now, obviously, we don't really like the cloth heads, the sand people.
Wow.
But
right.
They're a reality. We have to deal with it. We have to work with them.
Right.
So what we're going to do.
Step one.
The proposal that we are pitching today, Stan, could you pull up the first slide?
Where's my PowerPoint?
Yeah. It was before PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
It's like slides, Mad Men style. You flip the paper over.
Do I get the little light, the pointer, or is that before that? I don't know.
Before pointers. No, it's a stick. I'm tapping it with a stick.
Put it with my penis.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Shorts, you have to get right up to the board.
Like this? Hold on.
Oh, you're missing out if you're not watching the YouTube version of the show, people, I tell you. Just stuck his junk in the camera. Oh, there it is. And that was fully erect too. Wow. Oh, no. Had surgery.
Anyway, please continue. I'm sorry. That was rude of me.
What we're going to do is create an Islamic organization.
Right.
That is going to teach a warm and fuzzy, pro-science, pro-West version of Islam.
Yes.
It's still going to be Islami.
Yeah.
Islamish.
Right.
That's what we're going to call it, actually.
Right.
The Islamish movement. Right. It's Islamish.
Yeah. Right.
By the way, I've been getting a lot of emails recently from Muslim guys.
Huh.
Telling me they watched my film.
Right.
And loved it. But complaining about how I don't talk about the view of Jesus in the Quran and the view of Jesus in Islam and in the film.
But that was...
You just talk about the Jewish view and the Christian view. You don't talk about the Islamic view.
That's valid.
And I have to point out...
Right. But
I have to point out, well, it's about the history of Christianity, the creation of it. Islam didn't come around for 700 years after Christianity was created.
Good point.
So doesn't really fit into the film.
But thank you for watching.
But thank you for thank you for watching, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. Anyway, so we're going to create a Western-friendly Islamic organisation, fund the fuck out of it, and hopefully over time we can take over the traditional Islam thing.
Smart.
So it could have happened that way. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, we've seen crazier things that the CIA has concocted and crafted, right? Front groups, front organisations with fake missions, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Now, the Turkish government has accused him of being connected to, funded by, and supported by the CIA, which, of course, Gulen denies and the CIA denies, the American government denies. Turkey's chief prosecutor, after the 2016 attempted coup, issued an arrest warrant for a former CIA officer called Graham Fuller.
Right.
Now, Fuller's an old guy. Really, he's like in his 70s or 80s or something now.
Yeah.
80s, I think. Now, he's the former vice chair of the US National Intelligence Council. And they accused him, the prosecutor accused him of having links to Gulen and saying that he had a meeting with some other guys near Turkey just before the coup that led to the coup. Now, I looked up Graham Fuller. I'd never heard of him before, but he's 83, as I said, and according to the New York Times, was the architect of the Iran-Contra scandal.
Holy shit.
Back in his days with, I think, the National Intelligence Council, he wrote a think piece that said, we could do a deal with the Iranians that we've got under an economic blockade, but we could do a secret deal where we could be, finding ways to get secret slush fund money by selling them arms and getting the cash and then using that to give to the Contras in Nicaragua to fight the communists down there.
Yeah.
And then obviously Oliver and Reagan and Bush picked it up and ran with it. But he came up with the idea. Damn. So he's not unaccustomed to coming up with plans for overthrowing governments in countries that he doesn't like.
Damn right.
Now, to add to that, the connection between Fuller and Gulen goes way back. In 2008, Fuller, along with another former CIA official, George Fidus,
Right.
and a former US ambassador to Turkey, Morton Abramowitz, wrote endorsement letters for Gulen's green card application, his second green card application in 2008.
That's not normal. Like, if I was to apply to Australia for citizenship or to come over, I've got you, and you probably would have to think about it before even trying to help me get in. I got Chrissy. Fox would definitely sign, but it'd be in fucking crayon. I don't know if that's legally acceptable. And so this guy's got major hitters, the CIA and an ambassador and whoever the fuck else is actually standing up for him, saying, oh, we should definitely make this guy an American citizen. That's not normal.
Well, the ambassador to Turkey, you can understand. He probably knew the guy or had a relationship with him. But why would two former CIA officials
Coincidence?
be putting in a good word for you?
Cheryl said no.
It wasn't enough. He didn't get it.
Right.
Anyway, the Gulen, the current immigration court case is going on. He's having another crack at it. And leading Turkish newspaper Hurriyet reported this. Gulen's financial resources were detailed in the public prosecutor's arguments, which claimed that Saudi Arabia, Iran, the Turkish government, and the CIA were behind the Gulen movement. It stated that some businessmen in Ankara donated 10 to 70% of their annual income to the movement, and that it corresponded to $20,000 to $300,000 per year per person.
Fuck me.
It added that one businessman in Istanbul donated $4 to $5 million each year, and that young people graduating from Gulen schools donated between $2,000 and $5,000 each year. Among the reasons given by the US State Department's attorneys as to why Gulen's permanent residence application was refused is the suspicion of the CIA financing his movement.
Oh my God.
Because of the large amount of money the Gulen's movement uses to finance his projects, there are claims that he has secret agreements with Saudi Arabia, Iran and Turkic governments. There are suspicions that the CIA is a co-payer in financing these projects. The US State Department attorneys are saying this.
Well,
and even they are only able to say there's suspicion. They obviously they don't get this. They ring up the CIA and go, "Are you doing this?" And they're like, "Shut the fuck up!" And they,
Yeah.
So
yeah. But we haven't really gone into this yet on the history of the CIA, but I'm sure it's coming up. The CIA, the State Department, the National Security Agency, and all those FBI, they all compete with each other because they want their budgets bigger and everybody else is smaller. And so, like we did in the CIA show tonight, there's a point where one of the agents says, we need to shut this office down because everybody in it is a double agent. And Bedell Smith is like, no, we can't because that would make us look bad and we don't want to look weak. And all the other agencies would point their fingers and laugh and I would cry. So the point is they can't admit, they can't admit mistakes. And so in some ways I'm surprised, in some ways I'm not. But the State Department is like, we're pretty sure he's got the CIA taint on him. No, thank you. We're not going to do anything to help this guy become a citizen. I mean, that's a pretty big deal for the State Department lawyers to be saying this in public. Normally, you don't do that kind of thing.
Okay, but I sort of begs the question, why would that be a bad thing? Surely that would be a good thing?
That they're being honest
if
and
you're
open?
thinking of... Well, no. If you're trying to decide whether or not to give the guy a green card, the fact that he's getting funded by the CIA should be a green tick.
Unless you're the State Department and you've got a long institutional memory and you know that the CIA is a fucking joke since its inception in the late 1940s. Fuck them. I mean, why should you help the CIA?
Fuck them.
Fuck them. Why should you help the CIA?
But they're saying that's a reason not to give him a green card, is that he's useful to the CIA.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. I would think that would be a tick. You'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I think
this guy's useful to America.
Yeah.
Let's give him a green card.
No, you're right. In a different world, they might be working together hand in hand because it's us against the world. But again, these various agencies compete with each other. And it is still shocking that they're saying this out in public, whereas normally they would just go, look, we're not going to help this guy, but we don't need it all out there. Dirty laundry, you know what I'm saying? They're fucking putting it out there. So, again, just like everything else, there's a reason. We just don't know what it is.
The other thing that I find confusing about this is that the list of countries that are supposedly supporting the Gulen movement: Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Turkey.
Yeah.
Now, Saudi Arabia and Iran hate each other. They're mortal enemies, Sunni and Shia.
Right.
The Turkish government
trying to kill him.
kind of hate them all as well.
Right.
They're sort of frenemies.
Yep.
Jamal Khashoggi was murdered in the Saudi embassy in Istanbul.
Yes.
And the Turks were the ones who gave up bin Salman as a result, which is their next story we're coming up to. But these seem like weird organisations to be co-funding this guy, and the Turkish government is accusing him of being a terrorist organisation.
Yeah.
But the State Department is saying he's being funded by the Turkish government. Now, I know he did have friendly relations with even Erdogan going back some time.
Right.
But yeah, the story is there that partly that Turkey, when Kemal Ataturk founded modern Turkey, it was sort of a secular country. When Erdogan took it over, they've been sort of re-religiousizing Turkey to a point.
Right.
He kind of did a Reagan and said, I need to get in with the religious groups in order to get political support.
Gotcha.
So he was friendly, was on friendly terms with Gulen for a period there. But, and Gulen's got a long track record in supporting various Turkish coups, etc. as well, anti-communist for all the usual religious reasons.
Right.
But then they had a falling out before the attempted coup in 2016. They had a falling out, Erdogan and Gulen. So it's a complicated relationship there.
Right.
But, I wanted to point out that apparently the Gulen movement has set up madrasas, religious schools, all over the world in the 1990s, including all of those newly independent Turkic republics, the former Soviet countries. All the stands, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and in Russia. And it appears that these madrasas are being used by the CIA as fronts for them to send agents in undercover into these regions.
Yes.
They are called teachers and they have diplomatic passports, but they're really serving as operatives in these regions.
Yeah.
And building movements there to overthrow any potentially communist friendly countries, governments, movements. And that's the way that you overthrow countries like this. You always find minorities, people that are religious minorities or political minorities or ethnic minorities, who feel like they're getting they disagree with the ruling elite. And then you fund them and support them to build a rebel movement, build a rebel alliance, right? That's how you do this.
Then they're loyal to you.
So it looks like it's the locals that are overthrowing the government, not you.
Right.
This has been the American method, which is a lot different. From time to time you've just rocked in with armies, but it usually goes badly, and then you're like, shit, now we have the PR disaster of it looking badly. If you secretly, covertly fund, train, support rebel movements in these countries,
it's internal.
if it goes badly, it's not on you. Yeah, people go, well, they were funded by the CIA, and you go, prove it, motherfucker. Like, you got any proof?
We don't have any receipts.
Conspiracy theory.
They don't have any receipts.
Yeah.
So,
we
don't keep records. Yeah.
And anyone who did know about the connection, we threw out of a fifth-story building. So, good luck proving it.
Exactly.
Now, this ties into the Uyghur story that we did earlier. Now, there's a woman called Sibel Edmonds, who I've been following for some time. She runs a independent journalism site called NewsBud and has done a couple of other different things, blogger on Twitter, etc., etc. But her story is interesting. She was hired by the FBI after 9/11 to be a translator. And she was fired 6 or 7 months later after she became a whistleblower and accused one of her colleagues of covering up illicit activity by Turkic nationals.
Oh, gotcha.
She tried to take them to court for wrongful termination, and the FBI had it thrown out of court because they said in order to defend it, they'd need to reveal state secrets. and they can't do that, so it got thrown out of court.
Right.
It's always handy to play that card.
Yes.
Now, so she's since become sort of an activist, independent journalist, etc., blogger, conspiracy theorist. And the story that she's been pitching for years has been that after the fall of the Soviet Union, the superpowers began to fight for control over these regions in Central Asia because of the oil and gas and mineral resources wealth there, which is estimated to be worth something like $3 trillion. And they're all fighting for it. And because the populations of a lot of these countries are Muslim, the US has been working with Islamic allies in these regions, and it's the same is also true in Syria, as we've seen. Again, another secular region, but dominated, as Iraq was under Saddam, big Muslim population, but a secular government. Syria under Assad and his father, big Muslim population, but a secular government. The US have been working with to support Islamic terrorist groups and organisations like this, which according to Turkey is a terrorist group, in order to help them destabilise the governments of these regions so the US can get control. And the way that it works, getting back to what I was saying before, is you go to these organisations and you say, we will support you to overthrow the government and put in a government that's friendly to you. In return for that, if we accomplish our joint objective, our mission, what we need is American corporations come in and take over your resources, right? That's the basic business plan that you see being rolled out in Central America and Asia and Central Asia and Europe during the Marshall Plan years, etc., etc. Africa, etc. Yeah, it's a really good business model. We don't have to send our troops in. We'll just send you covert funds and training and expert guidance. And we'll say it's all in the name of freedom. And we'll give you political air cover and media air cover and best of luck. Right? According to Sibel Evans, this is the question we all need to be asking ourselves. After 9/11, the US government engaged in mock investigations and shut down many small Islamic charities and organisations, giving the appearance of action in the so-called war on terror. Why then did they harbour, support and resource Fetullah Gulen's $25 billion madrasa and mosque establishment efforts throughout the Central Asian region and the Balkans?
Mutual goals?
Maybe because they're a moderate Islamic group, or maybe there is another motivation here, but it's worth thinking about. And we're over an hour, but just to wrap up quickly with more CIA and Middle East stories. During the last election campaign, Biden said that if he won, he would kick Saudi ass up and down Main Street for the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi. And he said he would treat them as the pariahs they are, etc., etc., etc. He's in power now. He did declassify and release the CIA assessment that said that Saudi Crown Prince MBS Mohammed bin Salman was in fact responsible for the murder of Khashoggi in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018, but he's not going to do anything about it. Apart from the fact that he won't personally talk to the Crown Prince, only to the Crown Prince's father, King Salman.
Take that.
King Salmon, pink salmon, as opposed to Atlantic salmon, the son.
Pink salmon. Yeah.
But Biden's Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, is still speaking with the Crown Prince, and he did so earlier last week. Now, how do you think that conversation went? Look, you're about to see something in the press saying that we blame you for the death. But don't worry about it because nothing's going to happen. It's all kosher.
It's all good.
That's a Jewish joke. And you don't like Jews. But it's, do you have an Islamic version of kosher? I don't know. You guys worship the same.
It's the dietary restrictions
from the same guys. I don't know, Leviticus, I don't know.
Yeah, so you're still going to buy weapons from us, right? Oh, then we're all good.
Sell us cheap oil, buy weapons. It's
Still
all good.
Yeah, whatever that was. I don't know. But yeah.
Let us use your military bases
So when we
for our various adventures.
harass Iran. Good?
Yeah.
We're golden.
Yeah,
We're golden.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
But what, seriously, what can Biden do? I mean, and I'm not trying to be a smartass or anything, but it is a separate country. They have their own their own laws. They have their own military. Let's be quite honest. I mean, America's not going to go. To be honest, let's be honest. American citizens aren't going to want a war over one killed journalist again who isn't white. I mean, what could Biden do? Not, I'm just wondering. There's only so much, right?
They could stand up in the United Nations and accuse Saudi Arabia of the murder.
Economic sanctions.
Economic sanctions. Yeah, we're not selling you any more weapons to Saudi Arabia unless you hand over MBS
right
to stand trial in the United States. We're not selling you any more weapons, and we're not buying any more of your oil. Complete economic sanctions against.
None of that.
Basically,
No.
what you do to Iran and North Korea and Cuba,
Right.
do it to Saudi Arabia.
Oh.
Which, by the way, is illegal. Collective punishment is a crime under international law, as I keep pointing
Legal
out, but America
schmeagle.
does it anyway. You could take the case to the International Criminal Court.
Right.
Oh, wait, you're not members of the International Criminal Court, because then people would bring Americans in front of the International Criminal Court.
Can't have
So
that.
I see the madness in your method
The
there.
conundrum. Yes, we can't do that.
So, the comparison to Iran is important. That you've literally said you believe the CIA believes that he was responsible for the chopping up of a guy in a bathtub murder for being a journalist,
Yes.
for the crime of being a journalist,
Yes.
and you were gonna let him off scot-free and do nothing about it, and yet Iran's population of 85 million people have been under financial blockade for decades.
Yes.
Cuba's been under a blockade for decades.
Yes.
North Korea for decades. They didn't chop anyone up in a bathtub, but Saudi Arabia does it, and they get away with it scot-free. And despite
Right.
all of Biden's blustering during the campaign, the Democrats, as I said on one of our shows the other day, happy to give big talk but then do nothing.
Right. Yeah.
As much as the GOP.
Trying to become president, Cheryl, close your ears. Trying to become president is a lot like dating a woman. You're on the date, you want...
Not your legs, Cheryl, just your ears.
Yeah, that's good enough. Open your legs. Thanks. You tell them what you gotta tell them. You say what you gotta say. You go through the motions. No, tell me more about yourself. I find it fascinating. Whatever. When you get in, no pun intended, then it's like, fuck you, do whatever I want because I'm in. Just like Trump said, well, we're voted in now, so now I ain't got to make up all this bullshit about what I'm going to do as president. So Biden did what he needed to do to win, and now he is not going to do anything he either can't do, perceive he can't do, or maybe he's focused on COVID, I don't know, but he's not going to do shit, and that's the way the world is. Because testicular fortitude, he doesn't have any.
I got to tell you one more story before we go. The Gab. I signed up to the Gab, which is this far right-wing social media site.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I read. It's like Reddit for crazy right-wing social nutcases.
Right.
Founded by a guy called Andrew Torba. He's the CEO.
Heard that.
And I've been getting his email blasts from them recently, which is kind of fascinating.
Right.
I got one a couple of days ago called Why the Oligarchs Fear Christianity. This is from Andrew Torba himself, CEO, who signs his emails, Andrew Torba, CEO, Gab.com, Jesus is King. This email reads, Gab has been banned from 5 different banks over the course of the past 3 weeks. We operate a legal US business. We sell a software license to our Gab Pro service along with hats, shirts, mugs and other merchandise. The latest bank told us they are terminating our account because, quote, the media has written bad things about your business, end quote. The digital and economic secession and segregation is already happening, and Gab is proof of that.
Right.
Gab is the test case for the oligarchs. They will soon start attacking churches and Christian organisations in the same way that Gab has been persecuted for nearly 5 years now. Perhaps this secession will become geographic next. Time will tell, but personally, I'm mentally prepared for it. We didn't choose this. The psychopathic oligarchs in the American regime did. We will gladly embrace it and no longer associate with wickedness and their death cult of communism and critical theory.
Wow.
They can keep their drag queen story hours, 87 genders, degeneracy, moral depravity, and endless chaos.
Right.
We choose our humanity, freedom, order, and Jesus. This is, of course, exactly why those in power are attacking Gab. Tens of millions of Christians are using Gab services every month to unite and access an uncensored free flow of information that can't be found anywhere else on the internet. Blah, 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 blah. It goes on to say it's Christianity that's being attacked in the United States. Yeah. As you can see, brothers and sisters, Christianity is under an all-out assault from the American oligarch regime. But why? The answer is simple. They want us divided against one another by race, political parties, and more, because if we unite together in Christ, we will topple their regime to take our country and our culture back.
He had everything in there but the kitchen sink. Maybe that too. I don't know. What did Shakespeare write? A man may smile, or in this case, write eloquently, and yet still be a villain. So this guy is all over the place.
It finishes like this. Let me ask you a question. Who does the Chinese Communist Party fear? Is it the American government? The European Union? Russia? No. The answer is Jesus Christ. There are now nearly more Christians in China than there are people in the United States. Praise the Lord. Who do the oligarchs in the American regime fear? Jesus Christ. Christ will take dominion over China, the United States, and the rest of the world. It's not a question of if, but when. And as God's chosen people, Christians need to unite together now more than ever and take collective action against the enemy by exiting the existing and corrupt system to build our own.
I don't fear Jesus. I fear Old Testament God. God scares the shit out of me, but New Testament Jesus, he's going to come up, hug you, share some edibles with you, watch the sunset. I mean, he's just a fucking hippie hugging trees and take care of poor people and whores, which is my specialty. I don't fear Jesus. I think we're going to be okay. But I guess he's thinking of the wrathful Jesus. Right?
Any day now. He's coming. Any day now. All right, I got to go. I got an Italian lesson.
Ciao.
We'll be back at some point, folks. Bullshit Phil, we're not going to do it every week, but we'll do it a couple of times a month, maybe. Whenever I get up enough stories that I want to rant about is when we'll do it.
All right.
Ciao.
Ciao.